Who Barked by Louise Untermeyer. His name was Puck. In a dog's fairyland, he would have been the shortest, the shaggiest, and the most mischievous four-legged sprites. He was not quite a foot long, and he would never grow more than another inch or two. In Yorkshire he was born. He was known as a Yorkshire or a toy terrier. Sometimes he really looked like a toy, bouncing about on springs that never gave out. At other times, especially when he raised his little round, ragged head, he looked like a chrysanthemum with eyes. He was just 2 months old when he was brought across the ocean to a country home in Connecticut. It was a home with two people surrounded by five cats. The people were ordinary people, like most other people, and like each other, but the cats were like nothing except themselves. The oldest was a large calico-coloured cat, red, white, and black. Her name was Missy Potato. No one knew how she got her name, but it was said she had been found sleeping in a bushel basket of potatoes at the grocery store. She looked hurt whenever she heard one of the people explain it to a visitor, for she was a proud cat. My great grandmother came from Egypt, she told each new cat as soon as it came into the house. We were gods in Egypt, and we were treated like gods. We sat on a throne at the right hand of the king, or, when we wanted to, in the lap of the queen. When we wished to be by ourselves, and even a god sometimes wants privacy, we had 9 cushions to choose from. Cushions of velvet, silk, satin, plush, swan's down, sweet-smelling flax, gold-threaded cloth, spun linen from the north, and fine-combed cotton from the Nile. We never would dream of chasing a mouse. She sniffed haughtily. Our food was brought to us on golden dishes, every day a new dainty, and when we were thirsty, we were given ivory bowls of pure cream, which had been blessed by the priest. But, she sighed, things happen. Kings and queens die, and you learn to take your food wherever you find it. You're lucky, she said to Puck, that you will find it here waiting for you every morning if you behave yourself. The second cat was called Bobo. He could not make up his mind whether he was a black cat with queer white markings or a white cat with funny-looking black spots. He was very mischievous, and his full name was Bobo the Clown. But as he grew up, he took himself and his work very seriously, and he would let no one ever say he looked clownish. His work consisted of taking care of the property. He thought of himself as a watch cat, and he guarded every one of the 9 acres as fiercely as if he owned them all. Right after breakfast, he would go out and drive the frogs out of the lawn, keep the woodchucks out of the garden, and worry the moles who were trying to build tunnels under the house. Once, when the neighbour's tomcat walked over to pay a social call, Bobo, who was something of a bully, snarled, made such a savage face, and called the visitor such ugly names that he never came back. I am monarch of all I survey, he would yowl as he sat on his favourite rock. My right there is none to dispute. He would sing, for he picked up scraps of poetry, which the people read to each other, as easily as he picked up scraps of meat. Plush and Flash were twins, but they did not look or act alike. They were as different as hot and cold, good and bad, light and dark, sweet and sour, work and play, right and wrong, in and out, up and down, here and there. They were not only completely unlike each other, they were not even like their own names. Plush was a girl cat. She looked like a little ball of grey flour, something made to do nothing but lie on a soft bed or curl up in front of the fireplace and make a warm bed of its own. But that was something that Plush never did, for Plush was a mighty hunter. Underneath the velvet coat she was all fire and fury. Her velvet paws sheathed 20 little daggers. There was quicksilver in her veins and lightning in her bones. Other cats prowled, she pounced. Other cats pretended to be asleep until some unsuspecting field mouse came within easy reach. But Plush gave fair warning. She refused to hide, waving her tail like a flag and sounding her battle cry. She would take after a game. She was always the last one to come home, and after gulping down her dinner, she would dash back to the fields, her blood singing with the joy of the chase. She never ate her prey outside, but brought whatever she caught into the house. Then she would display it proudly to the other cats, carrying it from room to room, and win a gasp from the admiring people. Flash was a tomcat, and he looked as if he were made to fit his name. Lean and limber as a lynx, black as the blackest panther, all rippling muscle, a threat like a thunderbolt, ready to strike, but he never moved. He was always looking for a lap, anyone's lap, or a bed, anybody's bed. Other cats could not wait for the night, so they could howl, but Flash was afraid of the dark and cried when he was left outside. He had been the baby of the litter, and a baby he intended to remain. He never stopped talking. He had to tell everyone, especially the people, how helpless this poor 14-pound house cat was. Heavy, huge, and always hungry. He was sorry for himself. No one, he felt, absolutely no one, ever gave him enough love. Cleo was named for Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile. Actually, her ancestors had been proud Persians, but she was too modest to mention the fact. Modesty and beauty might have been her other names, for she never talked about herself, she rarely spoke at all, and she was almost too beautiful to be real. Her lovely body moved like music. Her hair was long and silky, the colour of polished ebony, except under her neck, where she wore a wide silver ruff. At night her eyes were pure gold. In sunlight they sparkled like Spanish topazes. But her greatest beauty shone out of her face, for it had the gentlest, sweetest, and kindest expression a cat ever wore. There was a little loneliness in it too, for Cleo had been a good young mother, and her kittens had been given away to other people. She needed to be needed. That was the way things were when Puck arrived and found himself in the midst of 5 cats. Each cat reacted differently. Missy Potato was much too grand to talk or even associate with him. She did not like the looks, or his walk, or his smell, or anything he did. When he whined a question, she refused to answer. When he whimpered, she walked away. She put him in his place by just ignoring his presence. Bobo cared in the worst way. He showed he did not want Puck around. Bobo had a built-in dislike of dogs. He hissed and spat and arched his back in a fight pose. Whenever Puck came near, as time passed, he permitted Puck to stay in the same room. After all, he was twice as big as the tiny bundle of dog, but he warned him to keep his distance. Plush was inclined to be friendly. She allowed Puck to sniff her, and she sniffed in return, but once the sniffing was over, she did not encourage further intimacies. At first she talked quite a bit to him about things in general and hunting in particular, but when she saw he did not understand, she gave it up. Flash was frankly jealous. He felt he never got enough attention as it was, and now here was someone, or something else, who would be petted and petted by the people. Cleo was the only one who liked Puck at once. As soon as she saw him, she decided to adopt him. She knew he needed someone who would not only care for him, but would take care of him. He had lost his mother. She had lost her kittens. She treated him like he was like one of her lost children. And it was not long before she believed he really was a kitten, a clumsy backward kitten who needed a lot of training. Teaching him was hard, she would say, to Missy Potato, who had to listen but was not really interested. He is quite bright about some things and very stupid about others. No matter how often I've shown him, he doesn't seem to know how to wash himself behind the ears. He walks awkwardly, but he can't curl himself up properly. He doesn't understand about mice. I must have brought in a dozen from the meadow, but I can't interest him in running after them, playing with them, catching them, throwing them in the air, and finally eating them. He gives them a puzzled stare, looks at them, sniffs them, and turns away in disgust. There's no way for a kitten to act. I don't know what I'm going to do with him. Children are so difficult. Nevertheless, Puck learned Cleo was as patient as she was kind. She gave him lessons 20 times a day, and Puck was so fond of her that he began to imitate her. First, she taught him attack and defense. He was very good at this. She would lie on her back, growl, and dare him to attack her. He would return her growl, make little dashes at her body, snap at her tail, and bite her ears. When he bit too hard, she would give him a cuff, and he would yelp and run away, which is what he was supposed to do. Then she would come at him, springing from a sofa or a table, and would run under a chair and make little noises that said, "Never touch me, and dare you to try it again." Round and round the room they would go, running up the stairs. It took a long time before she could coax him to run down the stairs, skidding around the furniture, tumbling over each other, until exhausted they stopped. Then they would sleep. They had separate beds, but once in a while, when he looked particularly appealing, she let him sleep in hers. Sometimes she believed she heard him purr. Gradually she got him used to the sport of the outdoors. She began with little things, ants and grasshoppers and crickets, and he learned to pounce on them as though they were his natural prey. Next came objects to seize, balls and chase, twigs to carry, and she was delighted when he did these things better than she. Then there were rocks and stone walls to get over, and again she was happy when she saw how swift and sure-footed he had become. The other cats began to accept him. They ate their meals together. He was just as eager as they for the Sunday treat of cooked liver, and they showed him what holes and crannies in the walls had the most interesting smells. Cleo was pleased and proud of him. Then came the unhappy day when they organised a family chase. The game was to see who could chase who how many times around the orchard. It was a combination of obstacle race and hide and seek with big rocks, tall grasses, barrels, and a wheelbarrow to jump in, around, across, and over. It was going splendid until Plush and Flash sprang into an apple tree. Puck ran to the foot of the tree and suddenly stopped. "Go on," cried Cleo. "Go up, go on up." But Puck stayed where he was and whined. "Don't be a baby," said Cleo. "Look, try the low branches first. It's easy. One good jump will do it. Then just claw your way up." But Puck could not make a move. He whimpered. Then, as Plush and Flash sprang from bro to bro, he began to cry hard. He kept on crying until the others felt sorry for him and took him home. Again and again Cleo tried to teach him to take that first leap. She picked out the trees that had browse close to the ground, heavy quince trees, low dogwoods, wide-spreading willows, but nothing happened. What kind of a kitten will you ever be if you don't learn to climb? Climbing is nature's first law. Trees were made for us. They are our best means of escape, an easy refuge, a cat's heaven. What's to become of you if you always stay on the ground? When she talked like this, Puck felt miserable. Everything in him wanted to please Cleo, yet something in him knew he could never do it. His body would not obey him. His muscles refused to do what he wanted. Puck did not know why this was so, but he knew he had failed her. A kitten who can't climb doesn't deserve to be a kitten, he told himself bitterly. Cleo walked away sadly, and Puck was heartbroken. Puck's unhappiness lasted for weeks. He stopped playing. He moped. He looked sick. He crouched in the corners. He sighed himself to sleep, even when he came for his food. He did not bound into the kitchen with the others as he had always done. He crept in by himself. His stump of a tail stopped wagging. His pointed ears drooped. His whole body slumped. Cleo watched him painfully. She longed to help, but there was nothing she could do. Then the unexpected happened. Puck was sitting half asleep under a maple tree. Cleo was lying a few feet away when a monster, huge and hairy, leapt over the wall and came straight at them. "Look out!" cried Cleo as she sprang up the branches. "It's a dog, a vicious dog. If you can't climb, run, run!" But something in Puck refused to let him run away. Something forced him to dash at the intruder, making sounds he had never made before. His throat rumbled, his chest shook, his short ears bristled, his whole body became a roar of anger. His bark and barked and barked. Stiff with fury, he plunged after the invader. The big beast, 10 times Puck's size, was so taken by surprise that he did not stay to fight. He put his tail between his legs and vanished. Then Puck set up a howl, a great, long shout of triumph. Now I know what I am, he told the world. Now I know why I couldn't climb trees. I'm not a kitten learning to be a cat. I'm a dog. That's what I've always been. He could not help boasting a little. A fearless, furious, frightening dog. Cleo sprang down from the tree, purring with praise, and licked his shining face. The other cats, all of whom had seen what had happened, looked at Puck with respect. Maybe we were wrong about him, said Missy Potato. He certainly knows how to take care of himself, admitted Bobo. I always said he would amount to something, said Plush. If he'd only learned to hunt. You can't help admiring him, admitted Flash. And I'm really not going to be jealous. They all waited for Cleo to speak. She purred for a moment, and all she said was, That's my boy. Then quietly, but very proudly, she walked off with Puck at her side. And after that, the little dog and the 5 big cats were one rollicking family. They never stopped enjoying each other. Puck barked and they meowed. He stole their food and they stole his. He chased them and they chased him. They had a wild and wonderful time, and Cleo with her golden eyes on Puck had the best time of all.